It's Sunday, September 29th, day 359 of the October 7th War, with dramatic developments this week on the northern border. We'll get perspective from Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus and then hear from student leaders around the world as we talk about the crisis on campus and how to push back effectively. Keeping you up to date, I'm Michael Dixon, and this is Special Briefing from Stand With Us. Shalom from Israel. In just over a week, will mark the grim anniversary of October the 7th, a day seared into the memory of all of us for as long as we live. There will be many commemorations around the world at this challenging time. But just how do we commemorate a tragedy that we're still enduring? Our eyes are on the north and our hearts are in the south. With this backdrop, Stand With Us will be holding multiple events around the world, the biggest of which will be with our partners at the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles and the IAC at the Saban Theater in Beverly Hills, and we'll be streaming that event live across our social media platforms. In addition, Stand With Us Australia will hold a memorial, the first in the world, at 6:29 on Bondi Beach in the morning. And Stand With Us UK has a tour featuring Israeli survivors that is touring across the country. In the United States, we'll be hosting gatherings in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Seattle, San Diego, New York, New Jersey, Miami, Boca Raton, and a whole host of other locations. So sign up to our newsletters via our website to get further details. Later, I'll be joined by student leaders from America, the UK, Australia, Brazil, and Europe to discuss the situation on their campuses. Plus, we'll feature an inspiring speech from the father of murdered Shani Look, whose face was on front covers of newspapers around the world. And in a moment, we'll get the latest security briefing with Jonathan Conricus. But first, the news headlines from last week at war. The head of terrorist organization Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, was eliminated by the IDF in a strike on their headquarters in Beirut, Lebanon. He was directly responsible for the murder of countless people, including Israelis, Americans, Argentinians, French citizens, Lebanese, and others. Together with Nasrallah, numerous other Hezbollah commanders and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps deputy commander were also eliminated. Due to rising tensions, Israel's Home Front Command has limited gatherings in central Israel to a maximum of 1,000 people. Over the weekend, red alert sirens sounded in several locations, including in central Israel due to a ballistic missile fired by Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. That missile was intercepted by the Arrow defense system outside of Israeli territory. The IDF has called up 2 reserve battalions to the northern front as Israel weighs options in Lebanon to ensure citizens of northern Israel can safely return to their homes. And next week, Israel is preparing to mark 1 year since the October 7th Hamas massacre, a year since thousands of people were murdered and 251 people were kidnapped, with 101 still remaining in Hamas terrorist captivity in Gaza. And as we approach the new year, Rosh Hashanah, Israel's population has almost hit 10 million. Figures released by the Central Bureau of Statistics show there are 9,999,000 people in the country, of whom 7.6 million are Jewish and 2 million are Muslim Arabs. Stand With Us wishes you and your family a happy, healthy, and peaceful new year. Shana Tova. Well, joining us live now is our friend, former international spokesperson for the IDF and senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Jonathan, thanks for joining us at such an important time. Hassan Nasrallah was the terrorist kingpin at the head of Hezbollah for 30 years, now eliminated, and it played out like a scene from The Godfather as Bibi was on his feet at the UN. Talk us through, please, this consequential operation.
Yes, so what we know so far is that Israel had various opportunities to do this and chose not to, but now another opportunity availed itself. And finally, the decision by the Prime Minister was there, and the conditions on the ground were as they needed to, which means that Israel had live and reliable intel on the ground that Hassan Nasrallah and others, but Hassan Nasrallah was the target, were indeed in their command bunker. And Israel had the aerial assets, fighter jets, ready in the air. And after the decision was made and the intel was verified, Israel delivered, I think it's reported 83 tons or 83 bombs, each one of them weighing almost a ton, which is, if not the largest, and one of the largest in modern history of a single strike against a single location. I think it's the largest in Israeli history. And of course, Israel used that amount of ammunition in order to be absolutely sure and safe that there's no way for anybody to come out of alive out of the Hezbollah command bunker in the southern part of Beirut. And as such, less than, I'd say, 24 hours later, not only Israel declared it, but eventually Hezbollah and their Iranian masters have admitted that Hassan Nasrallah and many of his seniors, in fact, the remaining part of Hezbollah's supreme military command, were indeed eliminated. And since then, what Israel has done is continued to strike various important and strategic military targets in Beirut, not relenting from the pressure here, and really delivering very sharp messages to Hezbollah, to the people who support them, and to anybody else that this is not over at all. And Israel is applying pressure on Hezbollah, because now is the time to continue to strike them. But definitely very, very consequential times. I'm sure that we'll speak about Iran and the US and the regional perspective, but this really is decision time for regional powers.
And of course we will. And just focusing once more on Hezbollah, it was formed to be the most formidable part of the Islamic Republic's ring of fire around Israel, that buffer to stop Israel from thwarting its hegemony, to take out its nuclear power. And this IDF operation was named Operation New Order, the hit on Nasrallah. So what now? Can we expect a new order?
I think that's more of a wish than really reality yet. Of course, that's something that Israel needs to aspire to. I think that Hezbollah is still, despite the fact that the IDF over the last 2 weeks has degraded many of its military capabilities, at the end of the day, it is still a very powerful nation-state organization. It controls budget, it controls people, it has tremendous resources, and it had, up until 2-3 weeks ago, a very formidable arsenal of tens of thousands of rockets, missiles, advanced weapons, and a very strong link with Iran. So for this to be a new beginning, or to be a new Middle East, we're still not there. Hezbollah needs to be defeated. And when we speak about defeating an organization like Hezbollah, that is a difficult task, because they are very deeply entrenched in Lebanese society. To really defeat in the military and political term would mean, of course, would necessitate a ground maneuver all the way into Beirut. And I don't think that is in the cards now. But I think that Israel can definitely significantly degrade Hezbollah's capabilities, make sure that they won't pose a threat for the coming years, and deal them a severe political and military blow, perhaps enough for them to be weakened domestically. But really, at the end of the day, as long as the Islamic Republic of Iran exists and has this hostile terror-supporting regime that continues to fund and provide weapons to its different proxies in the Middle East, it's a matter of time until these proxies will be replenished with weapons. So the real source of the matter, and for there to really be a new order, would actually mean dealing with the Islamic Republic of Iran and not only its proxies.
And as you mentioned, this all began less than 2 weeks ago with the Hezbollah pager explosions, then the walkie-talkies, then a series of attacks on Hezbollah leadership. We can show, I think, an image where we can see the entire upper echelon of Hezbollah taken out, culminating with Nasrallah's assassination. And by any assessment, this is a quick and stunning series of actions. What's your perspective on that?
Frankly, I think it's a work of beauty. And it's many, many years of hard work by Israeli intel officers, military and Mossad, and I think Shabak as well, but mostly military and Mossad, who for years diligently have been collecting intelligence, building the infrastructure, vetting the intelligence, and then having things prepared for when the political decision was made and the directive was given to the IDF to execute. And it is no small feat to have that level of penetration into a highly secretive and disciplined terrorist organization that is based on family and religious and ethnic ties, but to be able to penetrate that organization, its lines of supply in order to provide them with explosive goods embedded within their beepers, and then to have tabs and live information about the whereabouts of its seniors, and to be able to say that now we have struck a certain senior and we confirm that he's dead before Hezbollah acknowledges it. And the IDF has done this 6 or 7 times in the last 2 weeks. It is definitely something to be happy and proud of. For me, I am, of course, there's sorrow mixed in with the joy here, because we see the absolute brilliance of Israeli defense establishment when it comes to Hezbollah, which is a result of many years of hard work and preparations and training and budget and priorities. And of course, that is in stark contrast to how Israel prepared for, or didn't prepare for, Hezbollah, and of course for Hamas, sorry,
Yes.
and what happened on October 7. And that's a comparison that many are making, and I cannot not make it. I think it is very relevant, because Israel has shown that it has tremendous capabilities to reach enemies far away, thousands of kilometers away from its border, and to strike with great precision and with effect, as well as take out very difficult targets in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria. It is, of course, regrettable that we didn't have this level of preparation when it came to Hamas. If we look forward, and if we think where this is going to take us, I think very important moment, and I was very happy and relieved to read the press statement issued by President Biden, which is a wall-to-wall support of Israel. First and foremost, Israel's right to defend itself. Second, it is a very clear indication of who Hassan Nasrallah was, what Hezbollah is. They are bloody terrorists who have American, Israeli, and Lebanese blood on their hands, and that Israel has done the free world a good service by taking him out, and that the US will continue to support Israel's right to defend itself and to defeat its enemies. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I think that was the gist of the message, which is, I think, exactly what we should be hearing from our strongest and most important ally. I know that the US has a significant posture of military capabilities in the region. I know that the Iranians are looking very carefully and calibrating their response to this action according to what they see from Israel and from the United States of America. And this is now the time for Israel, for democracies, for the West to strike at the powers of evil. It is the time to deal Hezbollah, if possible, a fatal blow. And if Iran dares to get into this and directly involved by engaging in combat against Israel or the US, then it should be the best possible opportunity to really dial the Iranians back many, many years when it comes to their nefarious terrorist programs in the region. Sadly, I think that the Iranians are smart enough and disciplined enough, and they'll be reading the map and analyzing the situation. And I don't think that they will engage either Israel or the US. And I think that they will continue to use Arabs to do the dirty work for them, whether it's Lebanese, Syrians, Palestinians, or Jordanians, or Iraqis, or Yemenites. And at the end of the day, Israel is now on very high readiness. There's already been a missile attack towards Tel Aviv or central Israel, and there's high levels of readiness in anticipation of incoming rockets from Syria and from Iraq. The coming days will be very sensitive, but I think after the tremendous success that Israel has had over the last 2 weeks, definitely room for a bit of respite and a bit of joy in these tremendous achievements. not to lose focus of the aims of the war. Of course, we have 101 Israeli hostages that need to be brought back home from Gaza, and we need to return 70,000 Israelis to their homes along the northern border. Until that is done, we haven't really achieved anything of substance.
And you spoke about joy at the death of Hassan Nasrallah, who, of course, had the blood on his hands, not just of many Israelis, but many thousands of others, Americans, European, Lebanese. He also helped to maintain Bashar al-Assad's murderous leadership in Syria. And we have video here of Syrians celebrating the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Let's take a look. So those are celebrations in Syria. Many Arabs across the Middle East, privately and some publicly, happy to see Hezbollah being defeated, certainly to an extent. And Hezbollah, of course, was rocketing Israel since October the 8th in supposed solidarity with Hamas. So how could the fact that Hezbollah are in disarray affect Hamas now, who themselves are so badly degraded, and the fate of the hostages that you mentioned?
It's a very difficult time for the Iranian axis of evil, no doubt, because Hamas is on the ropes. It's down, but it's not out yet. I think that Hamas was really hoping that Hezbollah would be able to divert Israeli attention and capabilities and to kind of get Israel bogged down in Lebanon. That has been the contrary. Israel has been very successful in degrading Hezbollah capabilities without Hezbollah being able to do anything of real substance. And I think that Hamas is quite in despair now because they had a lot of hopes, I think, on Hezbollah. Up until now, none of the other Iranian proxies have made any meaningful attacks against Israel. They've been terrorizing Israeli civilians and they've been rupturing our normal lives, but in war scale activities, nothing really of significance. And Hamas, I think they're feeling pretty alone. Those that are left in Hamas, pretty alone, and the prospects aren't very good. And what Israel has shown, what the Israeli population, its military, security forces, and leadership have shown, that we are not straying away from the course, that there is a very clear goal here. We need to defeat our enemies. And with Hezbollah, we were very well prepared with targets, with intel, and with capabilities. And that has now been really shown with quite efficiency. With Hamas, it took us a lot of time and casualties, but at the end of the day, Hamas is in a very bad position. And if this expands and Iran is also targeted, then Hamas will be alone and there won't be anybody to come to its existence. And then it will be a matter of time before they'll have to come up with their hands above their heads with white flags. Israel needs to continue with the pressure, diplomatic, together with the US and the West, and to continue with military pressure, effective military pressure against Hamas in Gaza. And most importantly, take away control over the Gaza Strip from the hands of Hamas and turn it into a different reality where Hamas really fears a day where they do not control the Gaza Strip anymore. That is what Hamas is afraid of, because from a military perspective, they've all but been defeated. What Israel needs to do is to take control over Gaza from the hands of Hamas. When that will happen, that will bring about the complete demise of Hamas and for Israel, a new and much better security situation in the south, and hopefully the ability to return our brothers and sisters home.
And Jonathan, you've been speaking globally, touring all around the world. You've been on the international media and, of course, social media as well. While Israel is busy restoring its deterrence, doing a great job for itself, for the region and the world, some world leaders and some personalities on the media don't see it that way. So I've even seen some calling the Beeper attack itself an act of terrorism. How do you respond to opinions like that?
I think people who say these things, they're either terribly misinformed or they're blinded by hatred of Jews, which distorts their ability to call balls and strikes and really to see reality in front of them. And I think it's very regrettable when people are so blinded by their hatred against Israel and Jews that they cannot even say that the most direct and surgical strike in the history of modern warfare since World War II is indiscriminate and unfair, and the use of booby traps or ploys, or I've heard so much nonsense about this. It really tells who the person is and how long and deep they're willing to go in order to distort reality, even when Israel isn't to blame for anything, and to try to blame Israel for even when it is tremendously successful. And it's important to clarify, however you look at this, for instance, the beeper attack, it is as surgical as you can get in warfare. What Israel did was attack military infrastructure. The beepers that were handed out by Hezbollah to their operatives are part of the military infrastructure and are in themselves legitimate targets, and all of the people carrying them were Hezbollah operatives, some of them very senior, some of them less senior, but all of them were combatants. And it doesn't get any clearer than that when it comes to the application of the laws of armed warfare. And of course, none of our enemies give any consideration about morals in fighting, yet they are not criticized by the same people who are so quick to criticize Israel. It would have been great to see more support of Israel today and yesterday after Hassan Nasrallah was eliminated. And I think that he was an enemy of the West. He was an enemy of the free world, of democracies, of law-abiding societies. He was a criminal with blood on his hands. And I think anybody in the world who is for life, for freedom, for stability, for democracy, should rejoice and say, thank you, Israel, for getting one very bad person off the map and ridding the world of him. He was nothing good. And it's sad that many people aren't able to overcome their hatred of Israel in order to actually acknowledge good things done by Israel. I'm not saying that Israel is perfect and that we always do only good things. We also make mistakes. But at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, Israel is fighting for the forces of good, for democracy, for freedom, for civil rights, for the love of humanity and life, and we are fighting the forces of evil. And no matter how much people will try to distort that, that won't change.
And I think there's a silent majority that will certainly agree with you. You and I have been discussing these issues for almost a year now, mostly sad news we've had to contend with. This is definitely a positive step. We'll have to get together for a drink to celebrate. As always, we appreciate your perspective and your analysis. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, as ever, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, as war has raged on the physical battlefield, Jewish students and their allies have been fighting a different battle against rising anti-Semitism on university campuses. In a moment, we'll get the perspective of student leaders from around the world. But first, joining us to discuss this is StandWithUs Executive Director of the Emerson Fellowship and Campus Affairs, Rena Nasser First and Brooke Verschleiser. Thank you both very, very much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Brooke, let me turn to you first. You're an Emerson Fellowship alum, one of our leaders on campus, and a senior at Brown. So what's life been like for you on campus in the last year? And I know that you've specifically had to counter a divestment vote.
The Israel topic has definitely been all-encompassing. I'm a biochemistry major, pre-med, studying for my MCAT. But, my main focus right now has been combating misinformation on campus and really trying to get our perspective out there. Last year around Pesach, we had an encampment, and ultimately our administration made a deal with them that they would disband the encampment in exchange for our corporation voting on divestment. And so the way that process normally works is you would bring a proposal to what is called ACERM, which is an advisory committee. And if they believe it meets the criteria to divest, it then goes to the president votes on it, and if she agrees, it then would go to the corporation. But so essentially this deal was, it's going to go to ACERM, but it's completely decided it's already going to the corporation. So it's more of a going through the process. And so at the beginning of this year, some fellow students and I worked on our presentation and actually presented to this committee, and as well as the pro-divestment. And now they are due to make a a decision by the end of this month, and it'll then go to the corporation to vote on October.
What kind of support was Stand With Us able to give you during that process?
Yeah, so we actually had two people from Stand With Us in the days leading up to our presentation and help us actually work on our presentation, on our script. And, we were sitting in our Hillel building until they actually had to kick us out, just running through the script, paragraph after paragraph, line after line, and editing all of the little details down until we got it exactly how we wanted it.
Well done to you. And Rena, let's talk about the general campus climate in North America, because I know you normally get 300 plus cases of anti-Semitism in a year. And since October the 7th, it's over 1,000. How is the team dealing with that? And what is the kind of thing that we're looking at?
When talking about anti-Semitism on campus and the campus climate, it's important to first acknowledge that anti-Semitism existed on campus before October 7th. But what October 7th did is that it triggered a significant wave of escalation and radicalization. It started from celebrating the Hamas massacre and calling for days of resistance, to then demonizing Israel's response and echoing repeated calls for destruction, not just of Israel, but of Zionists, especially on campus. The activity we're seeing today is more visible, it's more vocal, it's more hostile, and as you said, it's accelerated, it's compounded. It's coming at students from all sides. We've actually grown our staff, our campus regional managers, we've grown that team across the country to provide more localized support. We're currently active on 320 universities, and that number is growing by the day, and also supporting 215 trained Stand With Us Emerson fellows who are leading the charge in their communities. Over the summer, many administrations published new campus policies against trends like encampments. And it was a hopeful time, but right now, as the year is in full swing, we need to see real consequences for perpetrators. And we're going to hold universities accountable to that.
Yeah, so important to keep their feet to the fire. And so how did these instances vary from school to school?
We're seeing a range of what this activity looks like across campuses. We're seeing demonstrations, mass demonstrations and walkouts, classroom and even dorm room hostility, where professors and even room advisors are pushing anti-Israel narratives and promoting pro-Hamas demonstrations. We're seeing a lot of this activity on social media. Most students are on social media, engaging in all kinds of different platforms, and they're seeing Israel content or even Jewish content get targeted, and seeing anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bigotry fester online, even from friends and peers. They're seeing vandalism and targeting of Jewish communal spaces like Chabad, Hillel, AIPI, Shabbat dinners. And in some cases, we're even seeing physical violence. As all those incidents and manifestations vary, the impact across campuses is largely the same. Students are feeling tremendous social isolation. They're being dropped from student clubs, organizations, friend groups. They're experiencing harassment and bullying. And because of all of this, they're shut out of campus life. They're feeling silenced and unsupported and incredibly vulnerable. And it's important to note that while there are campuses like Columbia, UCLA, University of Michigan, where their climate is a lot more public and discussed and focused on, there are hundreds of schools navigating similar challenges. For me, the most important variation from school to school is not the activity itself, but the school's response to that activity. Is there organized Jewish life and events and campaigns and communities that you can be part of? What is the administrative response looked to anti-Semitism? And is there involvement and support from elected officials and community leaders? I think in campuses where all of those things converge, it's much easier to navigate that climate because you have that support on the ground.
Brooke, we know that when divestment resolutions and anti-Israel or even pro-Hamas manifestations and demonstrations come to campus, it brings division across the campus. So I want to ask you, what did that look like at Brown? And what would your message be to fellow non-Jewish students who are at college because they want to learn, but then they see this egregious behavior happening on their campus?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw exactly that. Just the other day, there was a protest, and one of their chants was, "From Palestine to Lebanon, Israel will soon be gone." And so I think, they've made their stance very clear. They don't want Israel to exist. And so we recently heard Einat Wilf actually came to speak at Brown. And something she said that I thought was really powerful was, now is not the time to be silent. And, we always say, how could anti-Semitism rise so high in the past and no one did anything? And so I think we have to look at our time now and say, now is the time to do something, not to let it get to that level.
Yeah, now really is a time for our allies to stand up. And Rena, what tools are we able to equip students with who are working on all these issues?
The mission of our campus department is to give students the power to shape their college experience by ensuring that they're prepared, informed, supported, and empowered to make an impact for Israel and the Jewish people. What we're focusing on is activating leaders to identify and report local issues, to mobilize their communities, and to call for institutional change. And we're providing them with comprehensive support in order to do that. Some of that support includes educational resources like fact sheets, FAQs, current events newsletters, and workshops and presentations that help students respond to misinformation and false claims. We're also providing leadership training. Programs like the Stand With Us Emerson Fellowship are giving students the tools and the network to lead impactful Israel events and campaigns. As I mentioned, we're offering comprehensive support from multiple Stand With Us departments. The legal and strategic support we provide is empowering students to respond to anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bigotry in academic settings, in administrative settings. And as Brooke mentioned, we're also offering support in combating calls for boycott and divestment, anti-Israel resolutions, and other trends that we're seeing. And also, as you and Brooke said, Michael, we're helping students connect with friends and allies. We're helping them build bridges between different communities and making space in our movement for people of all backgrounds to join and take part. From a grassroots level, true impact is always going to revolve around student efforts being front and center and student voices being front and center. Students need to use all platforms possible to inform about what they're experiencing, the climate on campus, and to amplify their calls for action, the change that they want to see. We're helping students gather, work together, and fight for that better, safer campus climate. We're empowering them to step up and to lead, and they have our support every step of the way.
So important. And Brooke, it can sometimes feel like you're a lone voice, can't it? So how was it to have that Emerson training and to attend the conference and to understand that there are many, many people fighting the same fight as you are?
Yeah, it was incredible. I think amazing to attend these conferences and see how many students there are who are like-minded and who are experiencing similar situations on campus. I've made friendships at these conferences that have lasted till today. And I think, when you come from a campus and you feel like you're totally outnumbered and there may be very few people who support you, to see you have this wide-ranging, deep network of people standing behind you is something so powerful and meaningful for me.
And Rena, it's a new year, and there'll be many Jewish students feeling worried as they're taking these first weeks, their first steps on college. What message do you want to give them and to their parents?
Remember that you're not alone. You have an incredible movement behind you, an incredible organization behind you. Stand with us to support you in overcoming these challenges and driving meaningful change. Stay connected to Stand With Us so you can learn about resources, action alerts. You can get that critical support. Document everything. Encourage students to document incidents of anti-Semitism or bias on campus and to report those incidents. Report those incidents through school channels, but also to stand with us so we can help you and provide that support. Know your rights. Students should know what their legal rights are on campus, and Stand With Us Legal can help you address discrimination, harassment, or other illegal activity on campus. And we also have fact sheets that the legal department just published that you can find on our website to help you start learning about your rights. and speak up. Don't stay silent. When we see something, we need to say something. And if we come at this together, then we'll be able to impact so much more than if we were working separately.
Very important. And Brooke, what's your message as a student to other students this coming year?
Stand tall and stand proud. You know, as Rena's alluded to, we have the facts, we have the resources, and all we have to do is speak up. And I think now is really the time to come together and to stand strong in our beliefs and stand firm behind our belief that the Jewish people have a right to self-determination. And it's not the time to be silent.
Well, Brooke, you should feel very proud of your leadership in the face of adversity, and we're proud of you. And Rena, I can't thank you enough for your leadership, and please thank your incredible team working across North America, also around the world. We'll be meeting some of those international students in a moment, for all that you do to support these student warriors. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Michael.
And of course, campus anti-Semitism is not a uniquely American problem. So let's meet some international campus leaders from Stand With Us who are countering anti-Semitism and standing up for Israel from around the world. Let's meet our panel. Joining me today from some very different time zones are Adam Marks from Stand With Us Australia, Isabella Bouillon from Stand With Us Brazil, Jesse Piltz from Stand With Us Netherlands, and Annie Gishen from Stand With Us UK. Thank you all very much for being here. Let me turn to you first, Jesse. What's it like being a Jewish student on campus in Europe right now?
It's very intense. There's definitely a lot of fear that a lot of students feel within their own classrooms, within their own social circles of friends. Over the last year, we have really gotten a taste of what it's like dealing with the anti-Israel movement really coming into full manifestation. And now a lot of us are really trying to be proactive in how we respond, how we stay resilient during these difficult times, and how we can better educate our peers and faculty around.
Really important. And I will come to you in a moment about some of those strategies that you're employing. Adam, let me turn to you. Australia was seen as a place with less anti-Semitism until October the 7th came around. So tell us how it's been over there.
Unfortunately, in the months following October 7, we've seen a 700% increase in anti-Semitic incidences around Australia. It doesn't matter whether you live in a major city or not. It is incredibly frightening. In fact, there's just a judicial Senate inquiry that has taken place specifically for university campuses. And some of the anti-Semitic sentiment that has come out from real-life experiences of students on campus is just beyond comprehension. It doesn't feel like we're living in 2024. We can go back 80 years and the same things were being said. So, stay tuned to see how we deal with it in the coming years.
Thanks for that update. Annie, we've seen some horrible pro-Hamas rallies on the streets of London every Saturday. So how has that atmosphere permeated on campus?
It's become really difficult for us on campus. I went to a small Scottish university, so I didn't have the mass rallies, but I did become acutely aware of my, Judaism becoming the thing that people really focused on. And, I was acutely aware walking down the street of my campus that people would look at my Magen David and think that I was Jewish. We had instances where students at my university had to move out of their houses because of anti-Semitic instances. We had an example in Leeds University where the Jewish chaplains were driven off campus as a result of anti-Semitic threats. So, it's not been an easy year for us in the UK.
And of course, Isabella, in Brazil, 3 months after October the 7th, your new president was elected and a much more hostile government towards Israel. What's it been like for students, though?
It has been very complicated. Anti-Semitism was never a big problem here in Brazil, but since the October 7th and the war, it has been very, very difficult. Brazil has two major types of universities, the federal universities, which are directly controlled by the government, the federal government and the state government. So it's a bit complicated on those. And there's private universities where the situation hasn't been the best. There's cases here in São Paulo of Jewish students being told that they would be thrown out of buildings by their peers, and it has been very complicated. but we have a very close-knit community, so everyone has been coming together to combat anti-Semitism.
So, Jesse, how have you built a network to combat anti-Semitism? How have you learned from each other and been able to support each other there?
So, of course, a natural instinct is to be in touch with a lot of people within Jewish circles. So naturally going to my Jewish student union is a big help. But I also try to look beyond just the Jewish community and trying to see if I can really bring the non-Jewish voices just to be able to listen. So I will utilize people from my faculty, for example, and find ways in which if the conversation comes up related to the current war or the broader conflict, so to say, there are ways in which I can approach even non-Jews in talking about these sorts of issues in a very compassionate but very informative way. But it's just a matter of finding people who are willing to listen, to be able to find a way to be able to fight back as to what we are seeing over the past year and even to a certain extent years before.
Yeah, building coalitions with people is very important. Annie, one word we often hear about is allyship. So have you found there are allies on the ground willing to work with you to fight against anti-Semitism?
Some of our loudest voices on campus were, non-Jewish, non-affiliated, personally affiliated people. And it's been really remarkable to see actually people standing up for us and on our behalf on campus, especially knowing the kind of consequences that they could face socially and academically as a result of that. I personally have made, really strong connections with people who previously didn't really have a connection to Israel, but felt as though they needed to speak for us.
And I want to ask you, Isabella, how have you been able to support students who found themselves worried or intimidated by what's going on?
So we have created a very big network with Jewish students around the country. And also we work very closely with CONIBI, which is the Federal Jewish institution here in Brazil, and other state-led federations such as FISESP, FIERJ in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. And we have been able to reach out to a lot of universities and start new projects such as bringing lectures about Israel and the conflict and Judaism to their campuses. And just now, last week, we were able to schedule a meeting with the pastor of a university, a Christian university here in São Paulo, which had the biggest number of anti-Semitism. And they are signing the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism to combat anti-Semitism inside their campus.
Really important, and something that we really need to insist around the world, that people sign on to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition, the gold standard definition of anti-Semitism. Adam, let me turn to you. You're leading Stand With Us activity there on campus in Australia. What's that look like for you?
So we are on the verge of completing our first cohort of Emerson Fellows, an unbelievable prestigious program that we brought to Australia this year. We are opening applications the next couple of weeks, and we really see this as the future of the leaders of our Jewish community. We started off with a cohort of 10. We're moving up 14, 16, potentially even 20 fellows next year, not only in Sydney and Melbourne, but also in Perth and Canberra and beyond. And we really see them as the future. We're aiming to train them and empower them to be the most confident and courageous leaders that they can be. And ultimately, they will lead their fellow peers in the coming years, both on university campuses and in the Jewish communities beyond. We're looking to work with communities and various groups all over, whether Jewish or non-Jewish, and ultimately empower them to make these connections that will last not only today, but for tomorrow and for the future ahead.
And I want to ask you all the same question now, which is that, it's a new academic year. There'll be many Jewish students feeling worried as they're starting university. What message do you want to give them? What do you want to tell them? What lessons should they know before they step foot onto campus? Let's go to you first, Annie.
My message is really simple. I think, you should never hide your Jewish or Zionist identity when you're at university. Always tell people proudly that you're Jewish, that you're Zionist, that you love Israel, and, just be proud of who you are and don't be scared to speak up.
And Jesse, let me ask you the same question. European students, what's your message to them?
I agree with Annie in not feeling this need to hide your identity. It is important that we do show that we are Jewish and that we're proud and that we're not going anywhere. And yeah, my biggest advice is just really being resilient and showing strength. Yes, these are difficult times, but it's important for a lot of us in spaces throughout Europe and even beyond the world that we do have a space in these universities, and it is our responsibility to be bringing that light to people all over the world, as we know in our ancient traditions.
Absolutely. And Isabella, let me ask you, what's your message to students beginning their academic career this year?
Completing what Annie and Jesse said, I think that it's very important for Jewish students to remember that they're not alone. They have a community that supports them, and also Stand With Us around the world that is always here to help students in this very difficult moment. So I just hope they'll remember that they're not alone and they need to be proud of being Jewish and being part of such a beautiful community.
Thank you, Isabella. And finally, Adam, the last word from Australia. What's your message to those joining campus this year and also those who are already on university?
Following on from all these incredible CAPS leaders from around the world, I'd like to share a lesson I learned from Charlotte Korczak. And she shared with me that there are 3 types of anti-Semitism. There's Islamic anti-Semitism, left-wing and right-wing. I'd like to talk about the left versus the right. One way to protect yourself against right-wing anti-Semitism is to protect yourself, to protect your physical self. And in Australia, we do that through CS3, through the local volunteer community security group. That's one way to do it. However, with left-wing anti-Semitism, it's a bit different. The only way to protect yourself against that, to stand up against it, is to be more Jewish, to be proud to be yourself, to wear your Magen David out, to do acts of chesed and acts of goodwill with your kippah on, with your tzitzit hang out, whatever it may be. Be more Jewish, wherever it is, wherever you can. That's the way to defeat anti-Semitism. So go out and do it.
That's a great message of pride to end with. I really want to thank you for being Stand With Us stars, leading your peers on campus from all over the world. Big thanks for all that you do to Adam in Australia, Isabella in Brazil, Jesse in Europe, and Annie in the UK. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
What a great group of courageous young people. And as we come up to the new Jewish year and enter the new campus year, you can help us support these students with a generous donation. Please go to standwithus.com/donate. Thank you very much. Now, before we go, this week was the official opening of the Faces of October the 7th exhibition in Jerusalem. It features the art of Benzi Brofman, who was painting at the Nova Festival on the 6th of October when his wife called him and asked him to return home as she had a bad feeling. That call saved his life. He's then since committed himself to painting portraits of those who were murdered. And at the opening of the exhibition, Shani Luke's father, Nissim, had these inspiring words for everyone who had assembled.
אבל אני רוצה לומר לכם משהו. אני יודע שהתקופה שלנו, השנה הזאת הייתה שנה איומה לכל עם ישראל. אבל עכשיו 1944, עכשיו, 1944, שנה לפני סוף מלחמת העולם השנייה. ואנחנו, יהודים, הולכים לתאי הגזים. הנה פה. אנחנו עוד מעט כולנו נכנסים לתאי הגזים. ומישהו בא ואומר, אל תדאגו, עוד 4 שנים תהיה לכם מדינה בארץ ישראל. איזה מדינה? אנחנו נכנסים לתאי הגזים, אולי אנחנו היהודים האחרונים. ואחרי 4 שנים, הנס הגדול, בקמה מדינת ישראל. אז אני רוצה לומר לכם, שאחרי 7 באוקטובר, אנחנו עוד נראה את הנס הגדול. יגיע נס. אנחנו נראה את השינוי, אנחנו נראה את הבנייה, אנחנו נראה את ההתחדשות, ואני מקווה שהכל יחזור להיות, כמו שאמור להיות, לחיים נורמליים, ושקטים ובטוחים.
So moving, and it was an incredible, powerful opening to that exhibition. The exhibition runs until the end of October in Jerusalem. Really something worth going to see. You can go to the Stand With Us website to book tickets. And finally, a change of tone, as this week an Israeli came second in America's Got Talent. Ronnie Sagi and her dog Rhythm wowed the judges and wowed America with this incredible routine.
30 years you've been claiming your right, promising progress, but where's it at? I don't want you to feel like a failure. I know this hurts. Don't get me wrong. Nature had a great run, but it's time to give the people something different. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my album. My album. Hope.
That was awesome! Give it up for Ronnie Sagi and Rhythm.
A big mazel tov, terrific talent. We're sending love to the Israeli troops and to our brothers and sisters and allies around the world, and our prayers for every single hostage to be back home with their families soon. Thank you for watching. Yisrael Chai.